Hello, welcome to our humble new show from the creative geniuses behind Bill Belichick's world. This is The Snap. We are your team of clipboard-holding, punt-returning, flag-throwing experts, and we bring you the latest insight and opinion on the NFL, all with a distinctly British twang. While you're listening to us, why not look us up on social media, on Twitter at The Snap UK, and tell us what you think. Ask us any questions you may have, or just hurl insults if it makes you feel good. Rate this podcast and leave a review wherever you are listening, and help us to make this the best NFL listening experience that the UK has to offer. Over the next few weeks, we'll be previewing the upcoming season, taking you through all the divisions team by team with analysis of their Super Bowl chances, trying to pinpoint who will end up with the number one pick in the 2020 draft, the Giants, and looking at which rookies will be making the biggest impact. There will be fantasy talk from your fantasy genius who didn't win the fantasy league last year. Well, didn't win our fantasy league. And you'll be able to follow our fantasy league at our website when that's available, where you'll also find weekly articles covering all aspects of the NFL. From the first week to the last, we'll be covering all the action with something for fans of every franchise. Right, that's enough self-promotional nonsense, so let's get to the kickoff. Griff.
Hey guys, nice to be back.
Hi.
Just waking you all up because you look like you're about to be asleep. There's a lot of parents in this room this evening who look like they could have done without the podcast happening today. So, jumping back in with our old friend, the kickoff question. Melvin Gordon, Zeke Elliott and Jadeveon Clowney. Who gets paid, who gets traded, and who hold out the longest? What are their values? What do they mean for us going forward? Gentlemen, over to you.
Bad game of snog, marry, avoid, isn't it?
That's a very bad game. If any of them asked me to snog, marry or avoid them, I would do any of those three.
I'm sure if Jadeveon Clowney asked you to do one of them, you probably would, just through fear of the fact that he's twice the size of you.
Everybody's twice the size of me.
Not Zeke, probably.
No, he's pretty big.
I don't know, if he's Hulk carries on his holdout, he generally comes back twice the size of her.
So, what I'm thinking is, Zeke is being sort of shown as this. The Cowboys must have him if they're to have any chance to win. Now, without him, when he went missing, was it 2 years ago that he was missing for 6 games he had off? They lost the first 3 without him and then won the next 3 without him after they'd adjusted. Is he crucial to them making a Super Bowl run, or should they trade him and get a massive haul?
I think he's crucial.
Yeah.
I think when you've got him and Cooper with Dak, you've got some semblance of an offense. I think Zeke gets paid.
Yeah, if the only option is for Dak to throw the football, then he's just going to get pummeled, isn't he?
Well, we say that, but we've talked about this previously, that his stats are actually not as bad as people make out. And he's not had the best receiving core. You know, he started with Dez, and then he didn't really have much, and then Amari Cooper came in last year, and it was okay. So, I don't know. I think that's a bit unfair. You know,
but if Zeke's not there, then realistically, the opposing defense doesn't have to stack the box. So it means that Cooper's going to get double teamed, and it means that all the other crappy receivers that are there, they're not good enough. And I don't think Dak's good enough to find any of those crappy receivers in a tight spot.
I agree with you in terms of the stats on Dak, but there's not that many stats on Dak without Zeke, and I think there's a big come down in figures if you've got Dak handing off to Alfred Morris.
Yeah, I mean, so there's 2 running backs that are holding out. There's Zeke, who I think is vital to the Cowboys' chances as well, and then there's Melvin Gordon as well for the Chargers. And I think they're 2 completely different stories. Whereas Zeke is incredibly important to the Cowboys, I don't think Melvin Gordon is as important to the Chargers. He's been injured a lot. So you can't really trust him to be there, and they've also got a couple of decent receivers. A couple of decent running backs backing him up as well. Austin Eckler was pretty decent last year. Gordon's apparently holding out for more. I think they've offered him $10 million a year. He's holding out for more. I don't think he's worth more.
I'd agree. There was no real downside when Gordon was. Gordon's a great player, but were the Chargers any worse? He's the one I think might not get paid. I think he'll be. He's the one I can see not being.
I think during the playoffs you could see a difference in the Chargers as Gordon wasn't as fit. I think he's a good player. He's a
good
very,
player.
very good running
I
back.
don't doubt that. I think the whole value of the running back position is being devalued at the moment because there's so many, third, fourth, fifth round running backs, or even in the case of Philip Lindsay, running backs who aren't drafted at all, coming through and doing a decent enough job. And also, many teams are now going, instead of having one feature back, they're having 2, 3, 4 decent backs that can do a job.
Yeah.
Interesting point. Austin Eckler, as a career, averages 5.3 yards a carry, and Melvin Gordon only averages 4 yards a carry. Because if you think his first 2 years in the league, he just wasn't very good.
Yeah.
He didn't score a touchdown until about his 19th game in the league.
So I think when it comes to that yardage stat, the biggest difference there is that Eckler is utilised more to go around the edge, whereas Melvin Gordon's more going straight through the middle in a more powerful types of play.
That's because Melvin Gordon's a bigger running back.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm just looking at the Chargers. The Chargers window is shrinking because Philip Rivers
Has got too many children now to
has
keep
got
him
too
up
many
at
children
night.
and will probably have to retire to look after them. But Philip Rivers has probably got 2 or 3 seasons left.
I'd say it's 2 max.
Okay, so 2 seasons left. Austin Eckler and Jackson, who was the third choice running back last year, are good enough to carry the load. So why not trade Melvin Gordon to a team that needs a running back star and get some pieces either for overhauling the rest of the offense or even further improving the defense?
Do you know the thing I'm not seeing with any of this? They're holding out, but you're not getting any. Some teams are interested in trade. Like take Elliott. There's that thing in the past, isn't there? The Herschel Walker trade that led to the Cowboys pretty much getting the team that won the Super Bowl 3 times in the 90s. There's no teams that are actually showing any interest in this for trade, is there?
Running back values are so low. You can pick a running back in the 3rd or 4th round and they will do an equally good job. It's just a case of picking them up in the draft. You don't need to give up capital anymore.
I think that's certainly the case for Melvin Gordon. I think if someone came in with maybe a 2nd round pick, I think the Chargers would bite their hands off of that. The difference is, I think, with Zeke Elliott, because he's got such a better record. I think he's such a better player that the Cowboys could probably demand more for him.
So 2 things then. Firstly, Melvin Gordon, does he actually want to play at the Chargers? Because I think Zeke wants to be a Cowboy, and I don't think Melvin Gordon is that committed to being a Charger. So
No,
what do we think?
I don't think he does. No, he requested a trade so quickly after announcing he was holding out.
Yeah, I think they're 2 very different situations. Zeke is definitely at the peak of his value at the moment. I think a couple more years and you'll start to see people start to get worried about potential injuries as well. Gordon is a couple of years further into his career as well than Zeke. I'm not sure, isn't he? I'm sure he is.
I think it's an extra year.
Yeah,
Extra
1 year.
year.
I think, yeah.
But he's had other injury problems though, more than Zeke.
Yeah, Zeke's not really had many injuries.
Obviously
Gordon's
he
had time
out
out every.
He sat
year.
out some.
But that wasn't injury related.
Yeah, so he already, he did lose a bit of time, but he's stayed relatively healthy and he's delivered great numbers as well, and in different ways as well, receiving and running. I think Zeke definitely gets paid. Otherwise, someone else will pay Zeke. Someone else will believe Zeke.
Definitely.
Someone else will believe that he's the final piece to win a Super Bowl. I'm not sure somebody thinks the same thing about Gordon.
No.
All right. So the Cowboys need to pay Dak, Zeke, and Amari Cooper. What order do you put them in? And is it possible to win the Super Bowl without one of those 3? Because this is Jerry Jones's final throw of the dice. Because we've said it before, he's nearly 80. He wants to see his team win at least one more Super Bowl. Does he go all in on these 3 stars, or does he have to get rid of one to bring in a platoon of players that can help him get there?
I think you pay those 3.
Yeah.
You roll the dice.
Yeah.
I think you've got your system. You've got your coach. You've got a star wide receiver who should be a star wide receiver.
I don't think they've got the coach, but
Well, they have
Yeah.
a coach with a system, and they've
Yeah.
had that for a number of years. A quarterback that's been in that system for a number of years. I think you pay these players, and then you put the best you can around them for now, and see what happens over the 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
You
I
can't go
agree.
into full rebuild mode now, can you?
No, I think Jerry Jones has to roll the dice. I actually think if you look at it on paper, with those 3 players, the Cowboys are one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the NFC. In a division where 2 of their rivals, the Giants and the Redskins, are in rebuild mode, are in backwards mode, more or less, and the Eagles, they should be more than competitive, but the Cowboys look like a match for them.
I think in that division, it's definitely between the Eagles and the Cowboys. The other two teams, Redskins are rebuilding around a new quarterback, but the Giants are just going continually backwards.
Are they not also rebuilding around a new quarterback? Or are they
Who knows?
They have a new quarterback.
Well, so Jadeveon Clowney was. I put him in there as deliberately because he is a key holdout, but also it's interesting because he's on the opposite side of the ball. Does he have less bargaining power because he's seen as a defensive player that doesn't contribute so much to a win?
No. Defensive players get
Especially
paid.
pass rushers as well. I think the comparison here is the other holdout is Yannick Ngakoue for the Jaguars,
who's no longer holding out, came back today and said
did
he
he?
will be turning up and playing.
If you compare those, say he was holding out, those are two players, pass rushers that there's a reason pass rushers go so high in the draft because they're probably one of the most important players on the defensive side of the ball. The problem with Clowney is that the Texans have got a pretty decent pass rusher in J.J. Watt. They're going to have to pay Deshaun Watson soon. They've already paid DeAndre Hopkins a decent salary. It's whether they can afford or whether they can meet Clowney's wage demands.
I'd let him go. I think you need more balance
I'm surprised they
across
didn't
that.
trade him. Like they franchise tagged him. I'm surprised they didn't trade him.
I think
around the draft.
they just need a bit more balance in some other areas.
Some O-linemen.
O-lineman.
Yeah, exactly.
Good tight end. There's all sorts of things they could improve on that team.
I agree.
And I think defense is strong. When they were injured, we had a lot of injuries in this team over the last 2 or 3 years. They've still performed to a pretty high level. So do they need all of them? That
Clowney
would be the
himself
question.
has suffered too much with injury to be a top-level value player, I think, because he always looks one game away from another 6 or 8 games out of an injury.
It's a big risk, and that's going to mean his value is going to drop, similar to what we discussed in Gordon.
But, you see there's players which necessarily I wouldn't see as high level. Frank Clark, he got paid.
Ex-Nottingham Forest manager.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That is a niche reference.
That's the British twang.
Sorry, I was going to say, if I could refer you back to the intro where we said we would bring a British twang, that's the first twang.
I love the fact that there's some guy in San Francisco right now who's Googling Frank Clark, Nottingham
And he is seeing one of the greatest moustaches of all time.
It was a good moustache, to be
Played the
fair.
guitar as well.
Cheers, John.
Extra facts there. Yeah, I think Frank Clark was undervalued, and he's going to prove himself very worthy of his new deal. I think Jadeveon Clowney can be a difference maker on a team. I agree. I don't think the Texans need that difference making. It would be interesting to see if the Chargers would swap Gordon for Jadeveon Clowney. Because that Chargers defense
wouldn't.
is good. It's really good.
Yeah, but they've already got two
Bosa.
edge rushers in Bosa and Melvin Ingram.
And Bosa is not always fit either. That's where I
But
was
he
going
is
with
so
that.
good.
He is, but he misses 4 to 6 games a year. So
Yeah,
then if
but-
you could plug in Jadeveon Clowney and your defence never takes a break from being that good. And the Texans need someone to share the running back load with Lamar Miller.
Oh yeah, they definitely.
Lamar Miller
need
puts
someone.
up good numbers, but they need more.
Miller's not good enough. He's not I wouldn't say he's an elite running back by any means.
He was running back 12 last year in the league.
That's only just because of volume.
He's the Andy Dalton of running backs.
I don't know why he ever got paid. They paid
How
quite a lot of
insulting.
money for him, didn't they?
Yeah, he left the Dolphins and he got
Yeah.
a pretty decent wage. Frank Clark, by the way, got 13 sacks last year for the Seahawks.
That's not bad for a former Nottingham Forest manager.
Yeah.
He was about 70 now as well.
Drank a lot of red wine. I think he's dead, isn't he?
I think he might be, yeah.
We've gone down a dark rabbit warren there.
13 sacks in death. That's even more impressive.
That's why he got paid so much.
Going back to Zeke, I think you said who should they sign first. I think they need to sign Zeke now.
I think that should be the priority.
So
Yeah.
does Amari Cooper get hung out to dry a little bit because he's the extra player on the side? You've got to have a quarterback, you've got to have a running back, wide receivers.
I'm just thinking purely because when Zeke holds out, he comes back like a few pounds overweight, and it takes 3 games for him to get going.
I think
I
they
think
restructure all sorts of deals. They can afford to pay them all.
They'll find a
They'll
way.
find a
to do
way.
it.
And I think
Salary
they-
cap, you could bank on the salary cap going up every year for the next 4 to 5 years anyway. With the new CBA coming out next year, that's probably going to go up even further, so they'll be able to afford to pay him.
Do we think, though, that Le'Veon Bell not getting exactly what he wanted has an impact on some of these teams when they're negotiating with their running backs? Because they've seen that players can hold out and choose to take a whole year out and cost themselves loads of money and not get the enormous deal. Bell didn't get what he wanted.
I'm not sure the Cowboys are that team. I think
No.
they are full of self-importance and will want to show that they can afford to have the best team in the league with the best players. I think they'll pay. I think they'll pay.
If Jerry Jones can be the one spending the most money, he will. But I'm thinking more the Chargers. I don't think they're going to pay Gordon, and I think
No,
if,
I wouldn't.
if they want to move him on, I think they will.
But I see it a little bit, obviously not exactly the same, but with Bell they had Connor. And they knew that they already had Connor. You know, in terms of stats, there wasn't a massive drop-off, was there?
In fact, he had a better season than Bell had had, yeah.
So Austin Eckler is a decent running back option. The Cowboys have CAC behind Zeke. They don't have anything. So
They've re-signed Alfred Morris. What are you saying?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Alfred Morris was good in 2012.
Right?
He wasn't.
I think he was all right, actually.
He had 1,000
Did he get
yards.
about 800 yards
It
or
was like the
something?
one year he came in the same draft that RG3 came, and he was decent.
But still, he's not Zeke.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely not.
1 year out of that 7-year career, brilliant. let's be honest. You know,
Yeah, they
Yeah.
they clearly signed him because he knows the system. He's played for the Cowboys before, and they're banking on maybe Zeke misses a game or two, perhaps like John says, until he gets fit, if he holds out through the off-season. But
So yeah, the Cowboys running backs aside from Zeke Elliott are Mike Weber,
Who?
Alfred Morris, we discussed, Darius Jackson, Jordan Chun, Tony Pollard, and Ryan somebody.
They've just
I'm not
drafted
even
Tony
going to try and pronounce that. Juracek.
Tony
Right.
Pollard, they definitely just
You're a
drafted in the
check.
third or fourth
Jay
round.
Ajayi's on waivers, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I mean, but he's not Zeke, is
Who,
he?
sorry?
Jay Ajayi.
London-born.
London-born.
Thank you. Just checking.
Well, I'm just saying, you know,
Out of
there are
practice.
options. There are options for all different teams. I just think Zeke is a massive part of that franchise. There's no way they're gonna move on from him. But Gordon, Ajayi is a very similar player to Gordon. That's almost like for like.
Yeah,
Chargers could easily lose him and bring Ajayi in.
Yeah, completely
yeah,
agree.
they definitely could, and you could improve that team if another team will bite and trade for him. So, I'm surprised by Melvin Gordon. I don't know why he thinks he's worth so much. That's the bit I don't really understand. Zeke, I understand. Melvin Gordon, no, there wasn't a drop off when they played Eckler last year.
So, did anyone invest any time watching the Hall of Fame game
No.
last week?
No, John, no, I
No.
didn't know. No.
But for the sake of this article, I did watch the highlights on YouTube.
Well, we all just watched the highlights
Exactly.
on YouTube.
I didn't actually. I just ate my fish and chips.
No one is particularly interested in the Hall of Fame game. I only included it in the running order because I wanted everybody's thoughts on John Elway whiffing on another quarterback selection with Drew Lock, who Vic Fangio has described as a hard-throwing pitcher who's not ready to play. And apparently didn't have any idea that he was being taken either. And also, what do we think of the pass interference challenges which can now be made by the coaches?
So first things first, that's not the way you want to be described by your head coach.
No, it is
Have
not.
you seen how Adam Gase has described Sam Darnold?
Go on.
He's 22 years old and he can throw the ball like piss.
Like,
I don't even know what that means.
how far can you throw a fistful of piss?
I don't know.
And
But if I was a quarterback, that's how I'd want my head coach to describe me. How
we
you
were
just
sitting here
described
in
Drew Lock.
How
How
No.
accurate
Here
can you
discussing-
throw piss?
Well, that's it. If this episode isn't called a fistful of piss, then that's an odd one. But I see what Gase is. You know, he's backing his quarterback.
But that's how I would not want, even if it's just, you know, to be fair, it's not the most meaningful of games, is it?
No,
Not at all.
No.
I mean, he is a rookie, and he is a second round rookie. He's not like a top pick.
Yeah,
Well, he's no Daniel Jones.
He's no Daniel
Or
Jones
Paxton Lynch.
or Paxton Lynch. So I mean, and it's his first ever game in a pretty meaningless game, albeit.
7 of 11 for 34 yards in a game where there's no first or second choice defenders on.
He is a Broncos quarterback, though.
Well, this
Picked
is
by Elway,
Yeah, but he did go 42nd in the draft, I think it was.
something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
about that.
If you look at his college stats, he improved year on year on year. This isn't somebody that's been drafted that's ready to start. Obviously, that's why they've signed Flacco. So I think if you jump on that bandwagon this early, that's a bit harsh.
All right, I'll tell you why I'll jump on that bandwagon. I think they've signed Joe Flacco to tutor Drew Lock, and Joe Flacco is no longer the sort of quarterback who survives and does well in the NFL because he's not mobile. He's just a stand and throw, and he's a hard-throwing pitcher with accuracy issues, which is what Drew Lock already is. So if you're going to have him tutored by someone, don't you want someone better?
Yeah, you're asking somebody who spends 6 games a season out with a bad back to carry someone on his back through tutoring, aren't you? So,
Well, I think that's also a bit unfair because Drew Lock's average passing yards is 8. So per play, it's 8 yards. So actually, yeah, he might be able to sling the ball, but that doesn't mean he did that throughout his entire college career.
No.
So I think one game in a Hall of Fame game, it's not a real game. He hasn't been through a full camp yet. He hasn't spent any time behind an established quarterback. I think that's a little bit... I think it's a bit harsh. I think it's jumping on the Elway's an idiot.
I am prepared to say
I know that. But I'm not sure it's really fair to, label this guy as something we don't even know what he is yet, because we've seen other young quarterbacks in the league last year, where they've had terrible complete first years. Rosen last year, that wasn't good, was it? But
well, that's because he was surrounded by a load of tush.
but the point is, people aren't going to write him off immediately. So I just think that I think he's going to sit behind Flacco for most of the season.
I also think the Broncos they got Vic Fangio as their new head coach, who's the former defensive coordinator for the Bears and the 49ers, amongst others. I think this is going to be a much more defensive-led team, and they're going to look to run the ball as well. They've got 2 good running backs in Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. I think they've just signed someone else as well. I can't remember who.
Theo Riddick.
That's it. And I think they'll look to run the ball more to give their defense a rest. And they've got 2 incredibly good pass rushers in Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. So the way that this team's going to play is probably not going to rely as much on the quarterback being able to make lots of flashy throws.
Okay, so the third choice, if you like, at the Broncos is Kevin Hogan, who played at the Browns a few years ago, who's very much a run-first quarterback, but he completely outplayed Drew Lock. That is all I was getting at. I just think Flacco is not the right person to tutor the quarterback of the future for your franchise, who's got big steps to make. I think
that's a fair point. But
at this point, it's an unknown, isn't it? Yes. Flacco has did very well in Baltimore.
Well, he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But you do have quarterback coaches as well, though. We do put a lot of this about,
you're right.
because Flacco turned up and went, I'm not here to coach some little shit.
Yeah, he did.
But, he did say that, didn't he? He said, I'm not here to coach somebody, I'm here to play football. And they do employ quarterback coaches to teach them all these schemes and to do all this work with them. So
I think you're right. I think I'm prejudging it based on Elway's past recent record with quarterbacks.
It's not recent record, it goes back years.
Well, yeah. Basically, since he persuaded Peyton, he's done nothing else good at the
well done.
position.
You signed one of the best quarterbacks ever. Good job.
Well, a few of you thought Case Keenum was a half-decent signing after he took the Vikings to the championship game.
Yeah, thought it was a half-decent signing.
That's what I mean. And then a year later, apparently it's a terrible decision. So,
But
and I've got nothing,
Keenum was not one for the future. That was for the immediate. They haven't done anything for the future. That's the concern with the Broncos.
Well, I think it's because they got rid of Keenum so quickly as well. And it was literally the first moment they could get rid of him, they got rid of him.
Yeah, but he had a pretty poor season. You could argue that they would have been better off keeping Keenum and then bringing in Locke, rather than trading him for Flacco, and then having Locke behind Flacco.
On the basis that Keenum probably knows he's there to tutor them.
Exactly.
Flacco doesn't.
And also Keenum's done that before.
But you also know that Flacco has won a Super Bowl. So if you somehow get to the playoffs, you've got somebody there that knows how to negotiate the playoffs and might do something special. So football's one of these games, isn't it? That's the whole joy of it. It's about opinions.
If you go back and watch Flacco's run when they won the Super Bowl that year, was it 12 touchdowns without an interception in the postseason, I think?
Yep.
It's absolutely bonkers. And he's never been that good since, but at least he's got it in the locker. It's a bit like Eli. If the Giants manage to get Eli to the postseason, all you've seen of Eli in the postseason is how brilliant he can be. It's just, the other 17, 16 weeks a year, whatever it is, where he's terrible.
And another Broncos sitting there thinking, well, we've got somebody for the future. If he takes 3-4 years, Jimmy G sat behind Brady for however long. How long did Rodgers sit behind Favre?
3 years, yeah.
So these sorts of things happen. They don't just... some franchises go and try and get the ready-made thing. The Browns have tried it about 7 times before they've landed on one half-decent quarterback, But most franchises don't do that. They build for 2-3 years. So, it may well be that the Broncos look at the rest of their franchise and the rest of their roster and go, do you know what? Actually, if the quarterback isn't terrible, we might sneak into the playoffs. And if we do, who's more likely to win us, a Super Bowl? Is it Flacco or is it Keenum? And you're going to say Flacco every time.
Yeah, I think that's fair. On the other side of the ball in the same game, I'd never heard of Kurt Benkert, but he went 19 of 34, 185 yards and a touchdown, and should be the new backup for the Falcons behind Matt Ryan, because Matt Sharp came on at the end of the game, the last quarter. Do you remember former Texans player, Pro Bowler Matt Sharp?
The passing yards leader at one point about 10 years ago.
7, yeah. He averaged 0.8 of a yard per attempt and was dreadful, and has been a backup there for years without playing, and should retire, because a guy who has been the passing yards leader and a Pro Bowler shouldn't be sitting as a third stringer on a team where there are youngsters who could be getting these reps.
Yeah, but to be fair, he's probably about 52 years old, isn't he?
I think he's about 36.
Again, it's the Hall of Fame game. I think we're just reading too much into it. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 preseason games for the rest of these. We'll see. Matt Ryan's probably going to play one drive of one game through that, and you'll probably see a toss-up between, what was it, Kurt Benkert and Matt Schwab to see who gets the backup.
Matt who? Schwab? Matt Sharp. Okay.
Schaub.
Mainly, I just wanted to see how long I could drag out of this segment when you said I couldn't get 2 minutes out of a Hall of Fame segment.
You did well,
We've done
fair. I was quite impressed.
So, well done, everybody.
We're going to mention the pass interference challenge stuff.
Absolutely.
It's a thing now, you can challenge a
Do we think it's a good idea?
Well, yeah.
This is a bit
Is
like
anybody wearing a Saints
Do you know
shirt?
what? I still don't think they fixed the issue around the severity of the penalty.
Agreed.
That's always been my issue. So challenging it, in the game you were able to challenge, most decisions, the spot of the ball, all sorts of things. So that should just be part and parcel, really. The issue with this is still the severity of this. You can have a bigger penalty for pass interference than a horse collar tackle, which can severely injure somebody, a face mask, etc., etc. So for me, that's the issue. It's if I get a 50-yard penalty, it changes games. That's the issue.
Teams play to it as well.
I was going to say, how would the Patriots ever win any Super Bowl if
They
couldn't
wouldn't
just throw the ball up and wait?
Well, you're not allowed to touch Brady, and you're not allowed to touch his receivers. So the whole thing's crazy.
Yeah, I
You can challenge it, but it'll still be the Patriots.
Completely agree with you. I mean, they had to bring in something after that disgraceful call.
Do you think it reflects well on the league that they're willing to change things so quickly after such an egregious mistake? It took FIFA 10 years after the England World Cup goal was disallowed to bring in replays.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, the NFL. They have a rules committee that sit every year and they discuss.
Has this only been brought in for this year, and then it's to be approved permanently?
Yeah, so it gets tested this year. Then it goes to whether they're going to keep it or not.
I say fair play.
The NFL are good at changing the rules when it meets the benefit of the game. Like, they've made lots of rules to make the game safer for all the players, including kind of tackling with your helmet and such like. So, you compare that to other sports organisations like FIFA, which are so slow to do that.
The problem I have with this is that it's still an opinion-based rule. So, because it's going to be around how much contact there was it attempt to play the ball, there's going to be loads. Are you going to see more offensive pass interference? Because we see very little when there is plenty of offensive pass interference that goes on. I think it's a real interesting.
I agree with you that it is opinion based, but at least I think the biggest benefit is we don't have decisions.
The Saints round. It's there for the egregious mistake. It's not going to take anything else out at all. It's like umpires call in cricket. That really, the review system in cricket is for the one that's going miles past that the umpire's given out by mistake. And this is the same thing. It's to get rid of that. It'll be misused for a while, and then coaches will be told you've got to rein that in, or we'll just take it away from you. So hopefully it will just eliminate that, and we won't have to. Because aren't 6 people suing the NFL? 6 people from wherever it was.
New Orleans.
Yeah. Is it New Orleans? Yeah.
That's where the Saints are from.
Sorry, yes. I got St. Louis sucking me.
That would make sense.
The Rams. Yes. They've actually
You're just thinking of all the different types of soul food.
Yeah. They've actually called Roger Goodell as a witness. They're suing the league for not calling the penalty. Well, that's just crazy. Somebody hasn't got enough to do with their time.
Well, obviously, and too much money.
Before we move on too much further, can we just quickly turn our attention to Andrew Luck, who's been absent in practice with a calf injury and has said it is a lingering and frustrating problem. Should Colts fans be concerned, and is Jacoby Brissett going to allow him to win games if he misses the first couple of weeks? Now, I will say, he is saying he'll be ready week 1, even if he hasn't played the pre-season, but He does have injury history. Should there be a concern?
His arm and his shoulder and his mind are okay. They're okay. As long as those three things are fine, the Colts will be fine.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, like we said with Matt Ryan, he's going to play one drive of one game in the preseason. The same could be said of Andrew Luck. The same could be said of Tom Brady. All the star quarterbacks are going to hardly see any game time in the preseason. It's safety first with Andrew Luck. Yeah, you're right. He's got injury history, so let's not risk him.
Yeah, you've got Jimmy G. Similar. He's coming back, obviously, from a big injury. It's the same sort of thing. I just think it's just people looking for a story whilst there's not much going on, if I'm honest with you.
I'm sure
It's Kevin Durant in the playoffs for the basketball had the same injury. He rushed back and was then out for the end of the playoffs. That's why it's sort of Americans.
Exactly.
Did he not rush back and then tear his Achilles because the other leg was knackered?
And it's
or
not.
something like
I mean,
that?
it's not like they're going into a playoff game at the moment. They're going into meaningless.
Yeah.
Well, for the star players, they're meaningless preseason games. The preseason games are there to decide what the 53-man roster is, and it's not even that. It's the last 10 spots of that 53-man roster.
Does anyone remember what happened in the first game of last season with Andrew Luck?
He got taken off for Jacoby Brissett to throw a long ball.
And we all said, "Oh my God, is his shoulder done?" Could he not
Everyone
play?
said it.
And then he was brilliant for the rest of the year.
He was still good in that game.
I think
one throw, he couldn't do the long pass.
With Colts fans, they shouldn't be worried because Brissett is a decent backup.
Yes,
if it's Scott Tolzien, then you're worried.
Is he still in the league?
God knows. I
Probably. Yeah.
I don't want to disgrace my search history by looking at him.
I don't think.
Again.
I'm not sure there's a problem there at all. Okay, over the next few weeks, we will go in depth on all 32 teams and their squads for the coming season. But before we get stuck into that, let's try and get a feel for how we think everyone is shaping up with just a month to go before the games start coming thick and fast. We're going to go around the table and try and get one sentence that you feel best indicates that team's hopes for the forthcoming year. It'll be quick fire, and I absolutely reserve the right to hold you to your words as the year goes on.
I've just realised you're going to make us do all of the teams, so I'm going to have to come up with more than one sentence.
Yes, I am. I did ask if everybody read it.
Are we all doing all of the teams?
No.
All right,
You're each
okay.
going to do, so what do you get? 8 each, because there's 4 of you. See,
Okay.
basic maths, I do remember. So, the first person to start us off with the Arizona Cardinals is Paul.
They're going to finish 4th.
Moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, Jim.
They're going to be better offensively than last year and defensively, but still finish behind the Saints.
Concise, that's what I like. John, Baltimore Ravens.
The quarterback sucks.
Gary, the Buffalo Bills.
They are going to be truly, truly terrible.
Paul, the Carolina Panthers.
I really hope DJ Moore works.
Jim, the Chicago Bears.
In a division where they can finish first, second, third, or fourth.
John, the Cincinnati Bengals.
A summit of mediocrity.
That's been kind.
Oh, that's good. Gary, the Cleveland Browns.
They flatter towards a playoff run that does not happen.
Paul, the Dallas Cowboys.
Will win their division, I hope. I probably reckon. I'm a Giants fan, but let's not be too definite. You said you're going to hold this against me.
Jim, the Denver Broncos.
We'll suck donkey ass.
Brilliant. John, the Detroit Lions.
More of the same.
Oh, God, no. Gary, the Green Bay Packers.
Aaron Rodgers enters rehab for an alcohol problem. And again, Rodgers is not one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time and does not make the playoffs.
That is a long sentence. Paul, the Houston Texans. Didn't have time to think of anything then. Jim, Indianapolis Colts.
Will have a very deep playoff run.
John, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Foles misses the playoffs.
Gary, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Will potentially make the Super Bowl again.
They didn't make it last time.
They made it in the 60s.
Well, again, it's a very long time.
Potentially. They almost
The Los Angeles Chargers, Paul. Don't worry, everyone, we're halfway through. Los Angeles Chargers, Paul, in your own time.
They're all right.
In-depth and stunning analysis there.
No, I mean, if you want a sentence on how I feel they'll do,
They're all right.
they're going to finish. They might get a wild card. The Chiefs will win the division.
Okay. Jim, the Los Angeles Rams.
Will win the NFC West.
John, the Miami Dolphins.
Fitz gets them first pick.
Gary, the Minnesota Vikings.
We see the true Kirk Cousins and they go deep in the playoffs.
Paul, the New England Patriots.
I'll probably piss and win it again, won't they?
Jim, the New Orleans Saints.
We'll get to the Super Bowl.
John, the New York Giants. It should
Hope-
just be won't get to the Super Bowl.
Hopeful of 4-12.
Gary, the New York Jets.
They'll have Bell, but nothing else.
Oh, not fancying Darnold and co this year.
I think it's still too soon.
Paul, the Oakland Raiders.
Oh God!
Jim, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Will win the NFC East.
John, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Come on now.
Misses playoffs again.
Really? Oh, that's a big call. Gary, for you, the San Francisco 49ers.
Injuries, 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 sadness.
Paul, the Seattle Seahawks.
Much better than people give them credit for.
Jim, the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Jameis Winston will last this year, but then he'll be out.
John, the Tennessee Titans.
Mariota doesn't last the season.
And finally, Gary, the Washington Redskins.
More injuries. You know, defence will be alright, but they'll do nothing.
Oh, that was fairly concise, everyone. But like I say, the in-depth ones to come. I just wanted to see how people felt about these teams in the coming season. So, for what it's worth, I think half of those were pretty good, and the other half were clearly ones you hadn't had a chance to think about.
No, I thought very hard about the Texans to give you.
That's literally the best you could come up with. A couple of them were good. There's some contentious choices for who's going to win what divisions. I think. You think the Eagles are going to win?
Yeah, I think with Wentz being now hopefully fully fit, they've got a good set of
Who is the Eagles
receivers.
back up now?
Nate Sudfeld, is he still there?
I think so, yeah.
I thought they signed someone else, but I don't necessarily think Wentz sees the season through. He hasn't done it yet, and I don't think he will. And I think the Cowboys are all over that division, so I find that controversial.
Each to their own.
And I think the Jets will be better than you think, Gary. Really
I love Darnold. Obviously, I was a big fan. You know, when he came out of college. I just think maybe it might be a year too early. Have they got enough around him? I'm not sure.
Would you be willing to put a number on what they might do?
In terms of wins,
Yeah.
I think they might get to 7 or 8. I think they'll have a better season.
I think they'll be disappointed if they only go 8-8 this year. The Jets.
Yeah, that's still a tough division, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the Dolphins and the Bills are not that good. Who was it who said the Bills were crap?
Me.
You as well.
Me, yeah.
I think the Bills will be better than what we think they
Yeah.
will.
You reckon?
I
Yeah,
think Bills and Jets will be quite close.
Everyone on other podcasts which do exist seems to think that McDermott is a really good coach, and I just don't get it. I don't see. I mean, let's not forget he did try to sabotage their playoff run by throwing in Nate Peterman. Let's never forget that. And I don't get it. Does anyone else think he's actually got something good going on in Buffalo, or are they just relying on a guy with a cannon for an arm and some receivers who are just going to run like hell down the field?
Cannon for arm, but he had loads of running yards as well.
Yeah,
like
he did,
he's
yeah.
a decent weapon at
He
quarterback.
had to though. They had no O-line.
Yeah, I mean, if he improves his accuracy issues through the off season and through training camp, then
Then you
It's,
go
it's,
back
it's such a hard division to pick because there is so many young quarterbacks in there. You know, there's lots of change in there as well. You've got the Patriots, and then you're not really sure. And you know, there's obviously opportunities. If a couple of those teams tank, you could have the Jets win 5 or 6 divisional games. So it's difficult to know where they're going to sit. I think that's quite a difficult division to call.
Yeah, I
how
think-
many wins they get, because it could be quite evenly spread. They could all be on 3 or 4 divisional wins, or one of them could come out with 5 or 6. You just don't know.
I think you're absolutely right, Griff. When you said 8-8 would be a good achievement for them. I think at the very best they'll be pushing for a wild card spot. I still can't see him.
What do we
beating
think about
Patriots.
Rosen at the Dolphins? So far, he's been very much number 2. We know it's just the preseason, but
He was number 2 at the Cardinals in terms of performance.
well,
I thought it was number 7.
I mean, is this make or break for the Dolphins, or have they just taken a
Nah.
flyer? And
They've taken a fly. He's like the Cardinals paid off the biggest part of his contract.
Yeah.
He's like getting paid 3-4 million for the next 4 years,
something like that. Not a lot of money. Yeah.
I think it's 6 million over the next 3 years. So he's not costing them anything. worst case scenario, they're shit. They have the number 1 pick next year, and they pick first and have Rosen as a backup,
And what if Fitzpatrick accidentally wins 4 or 5 games?
like he
But
tends to do.
It's the Fitz
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah.
If he wins 4 or 5, he'll then lose 4 or 5, be dropped. Rosen will come in.
Yeah.
He'll do something. He'll be dropped.
Yeah.
And Fitz will come in. And
They're going to play in streaks of 3 or 4 games,
Yeah.
both of those quarterbacks,
Exactly.
all season long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's exactly. At least, I mean the thing with the Dolphins is that they do have a better offensive line than the Cardinals had last year. So Rosen has much more of a chance to prove he's good. But actually, like the Dolphins receivers aren't that great. They've still got Parker, but behind that,
Kenny Stills.
And we don't know what's happened to Bell in terms of having a year out.
yeah,
You know?
that's a
That's
good point.
very true.
So, you know, he might be really fresh or he might just be really rusty.
Who's the lead running back now in Miami, by the way?
Ballard.
Ballage.
Kellen?
Kellen?
Kellen
Kenyon
Ballard?
Drake?
Right, great.
Kenyon Drake. Yeah.
Is it Kenyon Drake or is it Ballage? I'm not sure. They hadn't specified which one.
I
it
would
was
say
gonna
it's Kenyon Drake, isn't it?
be. You would hope
Kenyon
so.
Drake based on last couple of years, but
It feels to me very much like a team that they are going to be relying on other teams slipping up. to win
Drake
some
is
games.
still there.
Drake
Yeah.
is
I
still
think
there.
the important thing is it's the Jets' defense. So you've got Mosley coming in there.
Yeah, the most overpaid linebacker in the league.
He was fantastic at the Ravens. You've got Quinnen Williams, who's an unknown quantity.
But like, it was
He's gonna be
second, third pick of the
Third-
third
yeah.
pick of the draft.
Yeah, so
Quality, although he has got a baby face.
and he's hilarious in press conferences.
Yeah.
So. But I think
Is
Likes,
he the
that's
guy
likes,
that did the
likes
pre-
to play with himself in Madden.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
I think the Jets will be better. Like I say, I think they'll get to, 7 or 8. But I think some people will be saying Bell's there. You've got Darnold. Are they going to challenge for the division? I don't think so.
How many games in the AFC East are the Patriots going to have taken off them by the Jets?
One by fluke.
one in Miami.
they'll probably lose in Miami because that's
I'll go with 2. One in Miami because they always do that, and I think they'll lose in Buffalo.
I think it could be 1 to each of the teams.
Yeah, but you
be.
always say that. So
Yeah, but you give us all this doom and gloom, and then you sat there with a smirk on your face
I'm
at
not,
Super
I'm not
Bowl
dooming
night.
and
Yeah.
glooming. I'm just saying. I think each of these teams is now good enough to win at home, possibly with the exception of the Dolphins. But we always lose in Miami.
I pretty much 80 to no, actually 100% disagree with that. That's just not going to happen. These teams are not used to winning.
No, that is very true.
They're not used to winning divisional games.
What was-
So much of it's
Yeah.
mental.
While we're
It just
talking about
won't
teams
happen.
that aren't used to winning, do we think that could be the biggest problem for the Browns? Is whilst their team is fantastic, they don't have a
I
winning
don't.
team.
I don't think that will be a
They've
problem.
brought in Beckham. He ain't used to
Well,
winning.
They've brought in players that have got more experience at winning. Baker Mayfield
Landry ain't got no experience at winning.
Mayfield is a leader who he didn't experience those that 0-16 season. He's come from a very good college program in Oklahoma, and he's led them to 7 wins last year, which compared to where they were previously is brilliant. I think the defense has got better. They traded for Olivia Vernon, so they got him on one side, Myles Garrett on the other one, who's apparently dropped weight, so he's faster and more explosive.
He needed that.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I had the Browns. I think they will just miss out on the playoffs.
I like
Yeah.
to think of the Browns as like the England football team of the circa 2000s. They look excellent on paper, but they could flatter deceive when they get on the grass.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an incredibly tight division.
I think the most
And then the Bengals.
If they get in, it will be wild card. I just don't see them quite having enough this year. I think it's just a little bit too soon. I'm not totally convinced at running back. I know Chubb had a decent-ish. Duke Johnson doesn't actually want to be there. He asked to
But
leave.
then after 8 games, they bring in Kareem Hunt, who is
Yeah.
good.
But it depends where they're sat at that point. They might be playing catch up by
Yeah.
then. So
I think the most interesting division, and I mentioned it when I think you gave me the Chicago Bears, is the NFC North, because I disagree with your point about the Lions. I think they could be sneaky good this year, and I think all 4 of those teams. Sorry, John. I think all 4 of those teams could theoretically win the division, but they could also all finish first.
Not the
third, or
Lions.
fourth.
I didn't mention the Lions, but I don't agree because I don't think Matt Patricia's a very good head coach.
He's
Yeah,
only had 1 season.
I think Matt Patricia's the weakness at the Lions, though. I think that's it. Matt Stafford's a good quarterback. Kenny Golladay and X number of other receivers that they've got are decent players. I'm just not. I'm not.
I just
sold
think
on
The
Matt.
with-
running
with
back problem isn't solved. Carryon Johnson is looked okay,
He's got a great name.
but
Would you pin your colours to 1,000-yard season from Kerryon Johnson?
No.
Absolutely no chance.
I think he's got every chance. I think.
I
he's that
agree.
good.
I think
he's got a
good.
chance. I'm not
He's
gonna,
got a
I wouldn't
chance.
put any money
I
on it.
wouldn't put any money
I
on
would
it.
Yeah.
be surprised if he's not at least approaching, if not over 1,000 yards. I think he's a really good running back. The first decent one they've had for a long time.
Completely agree with that. But yeah, I'm still not going to bet on it.
I just think they're uninspiring when it comes to offense.
But I think that's
Yeah.
but I think that's fine because they're building a good defense. Like they brought in Trey Flowers. They also signed someone who got let go of the Packers. I want to say Mike Daniels.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got Damon Harrison there as well.
Damon Harrison. They've got Darius Slay at cornerback. That's a good defense now. And I think they've got a good quarterback. They've got a good receiver.
They've got one good receiver. Name any other one there.
I don't know.
Jones,
Which one?
TJ.
We're still talking about the Lions or the Giants.
They're still Marvin,
Marvin Jones, yeah.
Marvin Jones. Yeah, Marvin Jones. Both Joneses. The Jones brothers. No, they're good.
I suppose they've got a tight end.
Yeah.
But I suppose Eric Ebron's a great tight end, but he was crap there.
Yeah, hang on. Let's hold off on the word
But
great.
then
He had one good season.
Let's look at the other three teams: Packers, Vikings, and Bears. Packers got a new coach and they got Aaron Rodgers, who's an alcoholic. Vikings
Allegedly.
Vikings have improved their offensive line, but there's still question marks over Dalvin Cook as running back because he's injury prone.
Bring me the ham.
Yeah.
They've got ham.
They got Ham, and they got Kirk Cousins. I'm still not sure about Kirk Cousins. The Bears did well last year, but again,
It's smoke and mirrors at the Bears.
Yeah.
The defense is brilliant. The offense is smoke and mirrors. We'll see.
so really, I think that's the hardest division to call.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure it's the hardest one to call. I think the AFC North is going to be hard, except the Bengals. I think the other three could be really tight.
I don't rate the Ravens.
I'm just not sure. They're going to be so different to everyone else. They're going to be run, and just run. They're going to put running backs at wide receiver. They're just going to run. That's what they're going to do.
Put running backs at quarterback.
Yeah, well, absolutely, they have. I think that's a tough one as well. So
It's like watching the Ooze Valley Eagles when I went to watch them when they didn't play a quarterback.
that's a very niche thing as well, though, John.
Well, yeah, for the 12 people that were there watching it with me, it was bloody rubbish.
Will you be playing for them next season? Bit of
I
short arm
imagine-
passing.
I imagine I'll go and go to the trials and they'll not email me again.
Oh God, he's back.
Flipping heck, the fat one. Okay, well, the 2-minute warning is upon us, so just in time to squeeze in any noteworthy news stories that you feel should be jumped out during the pre-season before we blow the whistle for another week. Any news that's wetted your whistle?
Anybody want to take the Giants' wide receiving woes?
Oh no! We suck again!
Yeah, you do. Don't worry, you've got rid of Corey Coleman for the year, so that's a bonus because he's
He
terrible.
was never going to be on the squad anyway.
They've had to close 3 Foot Lockers.
I mean, Sterling Shepard will be back. That's a thumb injury. He might miss the first week, maybe not.
It'll probably be week to week.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Russell Shepard's a fairly decent number 3.
We have a backup shepherd. It's fine.
Yeah. Cody Latimer is not a
Still got
terrible
Evan
player.
Ingram, right?
Evan Ingram, and your best receiver is going to be Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you sign a veteran. I wouldn't be surprised to see Michael Crabtree rock up there. Because that's the sort of player you need, just somebody to give some
Des
presence.
Bryant.
I was going to say,
Yeah, Des Bryant, absolutely. Why not?
is he fit now?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, he's fitter than Corey Coleman, so that's a bonus.
Brandon Marshall.
He did well last time, so
Yeah, that worked well for you. Tom Brady's contract. What do we think of this?
It's a non-contract. It's
A
void at the
non-contract.
end of the year.
Have we seen the 12 quarterbacks that make more than Brady this year? Wilson, Roethlisberger, Rodgers, Wentz, Ryan, Cousins, Garoppolo, Stafford, Carr, Breeze, Luck, and Alex Smith, who won't be playing because he's only got one leg. Between them,
just that he
How
does
many-
have a leg to stand on.
yes. How many Super Bowls between those 12?
2.
2,
No.
Oh, no.
1.
Garoppolo has 2 technically, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite right.
4.
Well, that's cheating, isn't it?
No, it's 5. But okay.
Oh,
But-
Wilson,
Oh, yeah.
Roethlisberger,
Yeah.
Garoppolo.
Breeze.
Yeah.
Breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah. He got
So-
one as well.
So, yeah, technically it's
Rodgers-
7 if
Rodgers
Garoppolo
had
didn't
one.
play, but
Yeah.
so there's 5 Super Bowl winning
I wouldn't
quarterbacks.
say Garoppolo's.
Which means if you take out the two that Garoppolo got as Brady's backup, the rest don't have as many as Brady, and yet he is only number 13 on the list of
He's
highest paid
42.
quarterbacks. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, he has been around
He's
forever.
got a fit wife.
You do like to mention that.
Yeah.
He's got the second most receiving yards for someone over the age of 40 in NFL history.
So after Jerry Rice.
Well, there's 3 people: Jerry Rice, Tom Brady, and Brett Favre with -9.
It's good knowledge.
That went well, that play, then I assume.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel sorry for him not earning. He has earned $220 million.
Yeah, he's done all right for
He's
himself.
done all right for himself.
And they just put their house on the market for $39 million as well. Him and Gazelle.
Giselle.
Yeah, that's the one.
Goodell.
Yes,
It makes sense now.
Tom Brady and Roger Goodell. The modelling wouldn't work. But anything else anybody feels the need to mention?
Nick Bosa looks amazing in practice.
He does
apparently.
look very good.
First
Really?
Bosa not to hold out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because, of course, he'll just hold out in year 4 when they need to pay him then. But yeah.
It's fine. Contrary to Gary's pessimism, we would have won 3 Super Bowls by then. It'd be fine.
And also,
There has been a lot of positive talk coming out around the 49ers.
you haven't bought a Bosa shirt, so everything's
I haven't
fine.
bought
Thank
any shirts
God.
with any names on them. But yeah, there is a lot of positive talk. I'm not buying into all this yet. Jim is a bit more, but yeah,
Just
I'm
being
not convinced.
optimistic.
And the 2 Giants fans at the table, how many games into the season before Eli is replaced by Daniel Jones?
16.
I agree with that. I don't think you'll see
yeah,
Daniel Jones starting this year.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Really?
I think he's terrible.
Paul?
I don't think he's terrible. We
I don't really like to admit
You don't think
how
he's
I'm
terrible?
a Giants fan.
Have you not seen any of the videos? He is definitely
Yeah,
terrible.
He is
He's
terrible.
pretty bad.
But I still think 8
Hey.
games in.
I've seen 2 throws on their Instagram account where he looked okay.
He can only make 2 throws. He lost the balls both times.
Yeah, it doesn't look great, I must admit, but I really think that Eli will have to go.
The cult of Eli will continue for at least another year. I reckon we'll be having this discussion in a year's time when we're going, when will Eli be replaced? And I'll say the same again. He'll last the season.
Christ, that's depressing.
But you think
is.
about it. Think of the quarterback we can get next year when we draft high.
Well, Tom Brady will be a free agent.
You drafted high this year. Shh. And you drafted high last year.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Who do you want? Tua?
We'll be entering our Super Bowl window then.
Definitely. Michael Thomas got paid $100 million contract.
Yeah, we did.
Fully deserved.
I think so. You don't look convinced.
No, it's not that I'm not convinced. I think it sets a slightly dangerous precedent for the wide receiver market because the next person is going to want to get paid, and the next person. And this is what's happened to running backs, and they've priced themselves out of their teams, and now people are going to be wanting Michael Thomas
They
money.
do,
And he's
but-
a freak.
But if you want Michael Thomas money, surely the owners would be saying, I want Michael Thomas performances. And unless you're DeAndre Hopkins or Julio Jones,
Mike Evans.
then yeah. So, yeah. I don't think it's a dangerous precedent
You know,
because
other
it's just continuation.
Other receivers that went ahead of Michael Thomas in that year's draft:
Corey Coleman.
Josh Doxson, Laquan Treadwell.
Wow.
Both in the first
Wow.
round. Michael Thomas is the second round pick. I think there was another one as well. And the fact that
Yeah.
the name escapes me does not bode well for that. That's so
Will Fuller.
Yeah, possibly.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, but this is what I say about the draft. It's a bit of a lottery, isn't it? Anything else? Anybody got anything before we sign off and let Gary go to bed before his trip to Stoke tomorrow? You looking forward to that?
No,
No. How is the 1-year-old at home keeping you awake?
she's great.
Right, well, I think that concludes this show.
Well-
Have you got a final whistle to blow?
No.
Don't do a whistle impression.
But yeah, thanks everyone for your valuable contributions. Next up on our podcast agenda is the season previews. So we'll be going through those over the next couple of weeks before we restart for the whole new season of audio delight.
I like the thought of audio delight.
Yeah.
Is that like angel delight, but in your ears?
Another British twang there.
Do they not have angel delight abroad?
I think it's quite a British thing.
Pretty sure it's a British thing.
Oh, okay. Well,
Let us know on Twitter.
Yeah.
I've never seen it when I've been to the States.
I'm
but
now keen to know.
It's fair. I don't even see it in England anymore. So
I love angel
Still there
delight.
if you look closely.
You can buy it in ready-made pots now.
Doesn't that take out half the fun?
I am waiting 5 minutes. I want to eat Angel Delight now.
Fucking hell.
How is the giving up smoking going?
Really well. What are you staring at?
Okay, well, don't forget to check us out on our social media at The Snap UK. Rate and review this podcast. Subscribe to ensure you never miss a show, and go to the website to take a look at the articles and opinions that we have there for you. Anytime you want to join in, please feel free to do so. The show is as much for you as it is for us. Until we meet again, we'll see you soon. Okay, bye.